The 49ers just got great news relating to impact players dealing with injuries right before Sunday's matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs, as well as an under-the-radar linebacker signing to the defense that could prove to be important given the lack of depth. And we're going to break that all down for you on this episode of Niners Digest. My name is Ethan Galbraith. Ladies and gentlemen, the wild card is here. The Niners have gotten into the playoffs. Now they just got to start winning some more games because, as you all know, the Super Bowl is at Levi's Stadium. The end goal is to play your final game of the season at Levi's and walk away with the sixth trophy. But it all starts this Sunday in Philadelphia. And the Niners are already coming in as underdogs as the sixth seed. But they'll have a better chance at pulling off this upset if they can get some important players back. And we're going to break that all down for you. But before we get into the injury updates, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. When you download Kalshi using the link below and use code DIGESTNFL, you'll get $20 when you trade your first $100. Now, what is Kalshi? Well, Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the United States. You can trade yes or no on pretty much anything, of course, including sports. And whether you're in California, New York, Texas, Kalshi is live in all 50 states. And for sports fans, that means you can trade yes or no on player performances, game outcomes, playoff chances, all on a regulated market where you can cash out at any time. So what does this mean for the Niners, for example? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the Niners are coming in as major underdogs to the Philadelphia Eagles. But if you think they can go on a run and upset Philly, you can trade yes or no on that. What about the NFC Championship race as a whole? Division rivals are leading the pack. Definitely not the Niners, but if you think, again, the Niners can go on a run and win this NFC crown and go play in the Super Bowl, you can trade yes or no on that as well. So thank you again to Kalshi so much for sponsoring this video. If you, again, use code DIGESTNFL with the link below, you'll get $20 when trading your first 100. So talking about the Niners going on a potential run, it starts this Sunday in Philadelphia. And all of the conversation this week has been talking about how the Niners are at a major disadvantage. And I'm not disagreeing. And primarily because one of the most important players in the entire league, his status is still up in the air, and that, of course, is Trent Williams. Trent Williams has missed the Seattle game, and his presence was dearly missed. That is a future Hall of Famer, of course. That should not surprise anybody that he was dearly missed in this game. But we finally got some positive news about his injury. Of course, Kyle Shanahan had said earlier in the week about how if the Seahawks-Niners game was on a Sunday, him and Ricky Pearsall could have played. I'll talk about Pearsall in a minute. That clearly has not been the case, though, because Trent Williams has still been rehabbing his injury, and we're still waiting to hear more positive results from it. But we got a nice start because he was back out practicing today. And as I jumped ahead of myself with Ricky Pearsall, I'll get to him in a second, though. Of course, Trent Williams is back at practice, and that's going to be huge because aside from him being having the label of future Hall of Famer, he has a huge impact in what the Niners want to do as both in their game plan, but can also end up being an advantage for the Niners in this game. One of the few advantages they might actually have. Kyle Posey talks about this here. He says, how important is Trent Williams to the Niners? They had the third highest outside zone rate in the NFL. Last week, that was the first time all season the offense didn't have a rush at or outside of the tackles. Week 8 was the last time they had single-digit outside zone attempts. And David Lombardi chimes in and goes, related, the Eagles are allowing over 5 yards per carry on outside zone runs. So Trent Williams being in this game is going to be crucial because the Eagles defense is great. There's no secret about that. But if they have an Achilles heel remotely, it's going to revolve around outside running. And if you get Trent Williams back in this game and he creates a path for Christian McCaffrey, who knows how great this run game can actually be in Lincoln Financial Field. The crowd's going to be rowdy. One way to quiet a crowd down, though, you just keep running the football well. So that is something to keep an eye on, but Trent Williams looks to be positively trending to a possible start in the wild card game. And I would argue that's the most important player that the Niners need available for this game. But close in second is Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall, I feel like I bring this up every time I talk about an injury to him. It's frustrating. And I'm going to say it again. It's frustrating. Ricky Pearsall has been a very good substitute wide receiver one without Brandon Ayuk this entire season. I think the jury's still out on if he can be the number one wide receiver in the long term, not because of his capabilities. He's a great wide receiver. It's because of his injuries. If he can stay healthy, like the Niners need a number one wide receiver to be. So he was practicing today, but still up in the air on if he will be available to play. So this is another example of what Niners fans should be keeping track of. So if you've been keeping notes about all of these injuries, let's go to the depth chart, because on the offense, it doesn't look as bad. But again, you're missing two key players, Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall. But if Trent Williams and Pearsall can come back for this game, the Niners offense is going to be at close to full strength as they can. So that is a good sign, especially against, like I mentioned, a Philadelphia Eagles defense that is playing pretty damn good football. So that is one side of the ball. But let's talk about the other side, because it's hard not to, especially against an Eagles offense that has been up and down all season. They've gotten their criticisms, but so has this Niners defense. And it doesn't look like it's going to get a whole lot better. Tatum Bethune is out for the playoffs, and that is going to be a huge way in how that's going to impact how Robert Saleh in this defense game plan against the Eagles. I would think so, because now this linebacker room is arguably thinner in terms of player ability than the defensive line. And the defensive line has already got an inconsistent pass rush all season as it is. So you're down to D. Winters is still questionable. Luke Gifford is still questionable. Eric Kendricks is going to be the starting Mike linebacker for the Niners this weekend in Philly. And I talked about this in my previous video. I think that could be a pretty solid move for the Niners, considering what the availability what their options are, of course. But I think that Eric Kendricks in that spot can be a good sign. But the Niners also signed Kyzir White, a veteran linebacker, and he was talking about earlier this week about if he was going to play. There's been speculation on if he will be playing on such short notice, but he might need to because of the Niners' the lack of linebackers available. And they asked him about this, and he said, quote, "I don't know. Whatever they need me to do, I can play. I'm going to go out there and practice today, try to pick up on everything, and help the team in whatever capacity I can." In whatever capacity I can. And I think that is a huge boost for the Niners. Of course, with the veteran presence of Kyzir White, I think that's a big deal. He hasn't shown much recently, of course, in 2025, but historically speaking, over the course of his career, he has been a pretty good linebacker. He has multiple 100-plus tackle seasons. Notably, he recorded over 100 tackles with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022. So he's played against the Niners before. And then he has a history against the Niners playing for the Cardinals before the Titans most recently. So whether or not Kyzir White plays this weekend, I think is a good boost. But considering how the injury bug has gone so far this year for the Niners, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him out there. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The one thing is, can he adjust quickly and enough on the fly to be a good linebacker for the Niners this weekend? But as I've also alluded to, it might just get to a point where it is what it is. So that's another player to look out for, because the linebacker room for the Niners is thin at possibly the worst time of the season. You're going against a Philadelphia run game that is pretty good. I think that's a really big understatement. You got Saquon Barkley out there, who did not meet the standard that he set the year before in his great Super Bowl winning season, but he's still a great running back. There's no denying that. And then, of course, Jalen Hurts, mobile as always. He's a great runner as well. So the Niners need all the help they can get at linebacker. And speaking of help at linebacker, there was another discussion going on at Niners practice today, because seen running on the field, according to Matt Barrows here, was Fred Warner. Warner, who is still on the IR, of course, will not play Sunday, of course. But what if the Niners win? So my final thought is this. The Niners obviously are still going to be underdogs coming into this game. They get a better chance at pulling off the upset, in my opinion, if Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall are available for this game. Kyzir White being available as well could be a huge boost. We still have to see if he's going to end up playing or not. But what if the Niners do win? What if they do pull off the upset in Philly? Then they got to go back on the road for the divisional, of course. But is Fred Warner going to be available? Now, we've heard mixed things about when he would potentially be available. But this, regardless of when he returns, it involves one thing. There's one common denominator here. The Niners got to win in Philly this weekend. So we'll keep you updated, of course, on any potential last-minute injury updates before the game on Sunday. But if the Niners can get Pearsall and Williams back, that's going to be a huge boost. But for now, that's all for this episode of Niners Digest. Thank you again so much for watching. My name is Ethan Galbraith, and we will see you in the next video.